It's a park that's all about speed. She's Carrie, I'm Jim, and this is the best trip ever. Please like, comment, and please subscribe, particularly to our SoundCloud and YouTube channel. With the content that we give you for free, it would really help us out if you could like, comment, and in particular subscribe. And definitely do it to our YouTube channel. And we have just gotten back from Ferrari World in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, this one was on our list because it gave us some major coaster credits. The world's fastest coaster is here.
And this park, as I mentioned, is all about speed. If you are into cars, particularly Ferraris and F1 racing, this is the park for you.
Yeah, I'm not a big car person, but I definitely appreciate a really great coaster. So when I found out we could go on a coaster that is the world's fastest, I had to do it. And also, they have the world's highest looping coaster. So 2 coaster credits were coming at us.
And a fantastic dark ride. This park is not as much about theming, but to be honest, it had better theming than I expected, particularly in some of the queue lines. This park definitely appeals to people who are into speed, but there's better theming and some better details than I anticipated at Ferrari World.
Yeah, one of the things that was a big surprise is a great dark ride, which is called Benno's, and it is one of your interactive kind of a shooting game. But instead of having a gun, you're shooting with a wrench, and it's a variety of different puzzles throughout the ride with fantastic audio animatronics too.
Yeah, Benno's Great Race is so cute. So you're this little mouse named Benno, and you're in a race. And as Carrie mentioned, you have a wrench, and unlike shooting, well, like on Buzz Lightyear or at Animaniacs, which we saw where you scan with a gun, either way, there's shooting involved with Men in Black, so many other rides. It seems like every park now has some sort of interactive shooting dark ride. Well, instead of shooting, you do different things to interact with the screen in the scene with this wrench controller.
Yeah, in one scene we had to smash the vegetables to get down the track. Another scene there was somebody stuck in a spider web and we had to cut with scissors the spider web. And then another one you had to actually put a car together like a jigsaw puzzles. So I love the fact that it wasn't just random shooting one after another. It was really creative with great creatures and characters.
Now, we saw a number of videos on Ferrari World when we were researching our trip. And I'll tell you what, none of the videos, and again, no disrespect to anyone, I think it's just there are details in this ride that you can't pick up on video, but this ride is incredibly well themed. It's got great animatronics and practical effects, and it is literally one of the best dark rides in the world. And in your opinion, you really like this as far as an interactive ride.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite one that I've been on. Maus Chocolat in Phantasialand in Germany had been really at the top of my list, but I think this one's actually surpassed it.
And you love Men in Black. You love a lot of these different rides. This is kind of your wheelhouse.
Definitely my wheelhouse, and I appreciate the creativity on this one. We loved it so much, we rode it twice in a row.
Fantastic surprise. And again, you don't expect this kind of theming and this kind of detail. The animatronics are fantastic. This is a great ride and a gem you should definitely not pass up. It's very easy to focus on the roller coasters and the speed here and the cars, and it is Ferrari World after all. But no matter who you are, don't skip on Benno's Great Race. It's a really adorable ride.
And we could have easily skipped it because as we came into the park, we headed straight for Formula Rossa, which is the world's fastest coaster. And we walked right by Benno's and we didn't even notice it until after we'd come back around.
Yeah, I was like, I guess we can do it. We have time. And I was wrong. It's adorable.
Excellent. Just a really, really great ride. But if you want one that I don't think was so great before we get to the coasters, the tire twist. Now, I'm not one for a teacup kind of ride. I don't like to be spun around that much, but I thought, okay, how often do I get to ride in a giant tire and be spun around? Yeah, never doing that again.
Now, in its defense, Ferrari World, as we mentioned, is all about speed. So when we got on it, it is a really fast teacup style ride. It's almost more like a scrambler, I guess, like you'd see at a fair, but again, much faster. And since Ferrari World is all about speed, I guess it only makes sense that this ride is really fast. So Carrie doesn't like to go that fast and be spun, but to be fair, it is a very good ride. Just beware, it's really fast.
But if we were to go the opposite direction and go to the slow part of the park, we went on Bella Italia, which is a scale Ferrari of a 250 California, where you're driving through all parts of Italy. This is one I was really looking forward to because I had seen it on the different YouTube channels, and it looked just adorable with all the different theming. Unfortunately, they must be doing some sort of renovations, and there was no water in throughout the track, and so I felt like it lost a lot of its charm that it must have had.
I really was looking forward to this ride because it looks so cute, but it's on a track. It's not trackless. It's kind of bumpy. There's not as much detail as I expected there to be with some of these miniature sets that you drive around. And again, it did lose some of the charm from the water. So it's a little more sparse than I expected. And I got to put it in the miss category. I really got high expectations and they were not met.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those that it's been years since we've done like Autopia at Disney. So I thought it might be kind of fun to actually go into a Ferrari and drive it. But this one was kind of a miss. That being said, we do have, I think, a new favorite roller coaster.
The theming for this coaster was off the charts, maybe the best we've ever seen. It's a World War I themed coaster called Flying Aces, a diving coaster. The seats are chevroned, so the middle seats are forward. The two seats that hang over the edge of the track that are floorless are farther back and on the outside. What a fantastic diving coaster. I was a big fan. It's not like the most innovative coaster in the world, but it's so smooth and so much fun. This is a top 5, definitely a top 10 coaster for me. Flying Aces.
Absolutely. And we rode this 2 times in a row. Both of the times I actually rode on the outside, so hanging over the rail, and I truly felt like I was flying. And the fact that it's the world's tallest loop really kind of ticked another box in a coaster credit.
It's got that inverted loop. So again, sort of like Flying Aces, the idea that you're in this biplane that are known for doing their loops, Snoopy and the Red Bear and all those things. And you go to the top of it and you do a roll on the very, very top. What a fantastic coaster. I enjoyed this thoroughly. Our first ride, we rode with another coaster enthusiast who is from Brazil. What a nice man. Probably, gray hair, probably in his 60s. Super fun, super nice, and he loved this coaster as well. He was laughing and giggling and yelling the whole way. What a fun time.
One neat thing they do with this coaster, and they've done this, we've noticed this at a couple places now, is when you get in, you go through the queue, which is, as Jim was saying, exceptionally detailed. So you come into the staging area, and they've got the doors closed, so you don't get to watch people that are getting onto the ride. You don't know what to expect in your first ride. Once the doors open, you get onto the ride itself, and the ride vehicles, they've got a wall down or like a garage door down, so you have no idea what you're heading into. You can't see the track. You don't know what's coming ahead of you, and until that garage door opens and you look straight up and realize you're heading straight up the ramp out of the go, you have no idea what's next, which is a really fun adrenaline rush.
I really loved Flying Aces. Excellent coaster. Be sure to hit that one. Like I said, I may have enjoyed it more than the big draw at the park. When it's all about speed, you've got to have, at least for right now, the fastest roller coaster in the world. That could change with some of the construction that's coming to other areas here in the Middle East. But right now, the champion is Formula Rossa, and it's the big draw for the park, and it lives up to the hype.
This is one that when you're getting to the queue, going through the queue and you get down, you have to put all your items in your lockers. I actually had to take my earrings off because it goes so fast. And if everyone is required to wear some sort of like safety glasses as well, because you are going so fast. You are going to 0 to 240 kilometers an hour in less than 5 seconds at takeoff.
Which is about 141 miles an hour. It just starts off just taking off like a dragster, and you feel every bit of it. And the glasses, the goggles are necessary because the hot air, you can just feel it on your face. And the goggles don't stick to your face. I kind of wish they did because you can still get some of the hot air going into your eyes, but you really notice like how bad it would be if you weren't wearing goggles. But you are going so fast, your face is pulling. It's like you're in one of those astronaut tests that you see in like a movie like The Right Stuff or any other space movie. It is fast, and you feel every G.
Yeah, it's fabulous though. And it's amazing to, when you're sitting there again, waiting for the anticipation, and you don't realize how fast you're going until after it's all over and you actually see the photos. I had long pants on and it was blowing so hard that my pants blew up over my knees. My shirt was off my shoulder. It was really like being in a wind tunnel. And this is one of the few things that is actually outside.
And this coaster doesn't do anything amazing. It does some banks, it takes some hills, there's some camelbacks, but at the same time, there's no looping. But this thing is all about speed. It's a very smooth ride, but it is fast. And it's definitely something that if you could handle the speed, you should experience Formula Rossa.
And if you can, try the front row. We did the first time in the front row and the second time in the back row, and we felt it was the smoothest when you're in the front. Plus, you also get to see everything that's coming.
Carrie mentioned the lockers, and this I think is a really good system for the park. They have attendants there, and they walk you to a locker. You put your stuff in. They give you a card that has the number on it, and then they've got some sort of interactive electronic card, and they lock the locker for you. So there's no fumbling with codes or waiting for people. It's a really nice system.
And you don't have to pay, which is really nice. I hate the fact that my stuff is in a locker for 5 or 10 minutes, and it costs me $2 every time I have to lock it up at a theme park.
The other coaster we did was Turbo Track, which is a boomerang coaster. Goes right up the funnel, right in the very middle of the park. Takes about 30 seconds, a boomerang, but it's fast too.
Yeah, it goes straight up. It does a twirl. So, for example, we felt like we were in the front row to get started, and there's only 4 rows. And then we went straight up the funnel, and then on the way back, obviously, we were backwards. Wouldn't want to have to wait in line for very long, but it's an interesting one. And also, if you're in the middle of the actual amusement park itself, you can see everybody riding it.
Yeah, it's literally about 30 seconds. And you go outside, you don't have the benefit of goggles this time. And you go straight up in the air, and it feels like you're going right into the sun because you really feel the heat. But again, a fun little ride, lots of speed, which is the theme for the entire park. I'm not a car person. I don't know much about Ferraris, but if you're a Ferrari fan, you will love this park. As a matter of fact, the day before, we were on the shuttle bus to come to Yaz Island. And there was a gentleman that was on the bus who was all decked out in Ferrari gear. And I imagine that he probably had the best time at Ferrari World.
Yeah, I mean, for a real Ferrari fan, you could actually spend hours looking at all the historical Ferraris there and the history of the Ferrari. I mean, they have multiple shows and movies, and you could make a whole day out of it if you're really into it.
If you're not, I would say, depending on the traffic, maybe about a 3-hour or so park.
Yeah, and ours was cut a little bit short because one of the coasters we were looking forward to riding was one of the racing coasters, the Fiorano GT Challenge, and it was down that day. So we lost 2 coaster credits on that and only ended up with 3 out of 5. We noticed that on a couple of attractions were actually down during that day, and we never did get to see the character meet and greet, sadly.
Yeah, we really wanted a picture with the camel, but he was never out. It kind of felt on the day that we were there that they were doing a lot of construction. There was walls up, temporary walls, temporary barriers, and it just felt like it wasn't running at full capacity as far as the number of attractions that were open and as far as the staff and everything. It just kind of felt like almost like you were going to a Disney park, say in like January or February, that this was the maintenance time. And I think that took a little bit away from the experience.
And you also want to keep in mind, not everything is included here. They have 3 or 4 attractions, and granted, they are great. I mean, you can actually do a Ferrari driving experience. You can do a couple different simulators. You can do go-karts, but every one of those is going to have an upcharge, and that's in addition to the $80 admission charge it is to get in. There are some discounts if you buy your tickets at least 15 days prior, but if you wait until day of, plan on adult rates being $80, and they do make their rates based on height at this theme park.
There were also some systems issues, particular in getting the photo packages. They do make you lock up all loose items, so you're not going to take, say, a GoPro on any of the roller coasters, things like that. So you're not going to get pictures, which you would have to buy if you want the pictures. And there was some confusing pricing issues that we had. There was another time when we were purchasing some pictures, and I wanted to buy some other little knickknacks, and she told me one price, And then she went and got the item for me, the attendant, and then she showed me that it was a lower price than she quoted me, which is fine. No one's complaining about that. I don't expect, the prices for everything. And then she rings it up, and suddenly it's an even higher price. So it's a third higher price. And I was like, well, that seems just wrong. So there were some issues, I think, with staffing and some systems in place that, to use a pun, didn't really feel like Ferrari World was a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, it's definitely a park that, I'm glad we went. I'm glad we marked it off. I don't think it's one we'll probably return to unless we happen to be with somebody else that really wants to go. But it is, that's 2 big coaster credits that we got, as well as a third. And the interesting thing is it's located, believe it or not, inside a shopping mall, which we didn't realize. We'd seen pictures of the iconic building, and you'll have to look it up to see what Ferrari World looks like. But you actually have to go through Yas Mall to get into the theme park.
Yeah, it's connected to a huge mall. I mean, this is a massive mall, one of the biggest, most opulent malls that we've ever been to. And be sure to give yourself some time to walk through this mall because it has everything.
Yeah, which was great because we got to the park before it opened and we needed a piece for our GoPro. So they had 3 or 4 different electronic stores, and we finally did find what we were looking for, which was very handy. We did the park, and then we realized we wanted to have some lunch, and instead of having to eat overpriced theme park food, we had probably 40 different restaurants inside the mall to choose from, which was quite handy.
So yeah, give yourself some time for the mall, or maybe if you're going with a group and someone doesn't want to do fast rides, or maybe they're not into the Ferrari theme, they can do some shopping because there's a million stores at this Yas Mall. There's even a giant Ace Hardware for some reason. But like I said, Yas Mall is a great attraction on its own, so if you have time, be sure to stop with that. But as far as Ferrari World goes, I did enjoy it. We talked about some of the negative things that did detract from the experience, but I wish that the theming in the whole building that encompasses the rides, it feels a little cold, it feels a little metallic, and it's lacking some warmth and charm that some of the theming in the queues has. And if they incorporated some more theming and maybe a little less industrial look in the main building, I think that would go a long way, but probably that die's already been cast. However, I did enjoy Ferrari World. I would recommend going, particularly if you're a coaster or a Ferrari enthusiast.
Absolutely. And they do have a section for kids. They had different climbing structures and smaller kid activities. I did see some families there with smaller kids, but you kind of would really have to either be one extreme or the other. Either have a lot of little kids with you or a lot of older kids, because not everybody's going to be able to do everything at the same time because it's very height restrictive on their activities.
So Ferrari World, what are your top 3 favorite things?
My number 1 was probably Benno's, because I just thought the theming on that attraction was fantastic, and I loved the fact that it had puzzles. I loved Flying Aces. I would highly recommend sitting on the outside where you're hanging off the rail. And 3, the fact that we can now brag that we've ridden the fastest coaster in the world with that. So those are my 3.
Keep in mind that because of the day we went, some of the things were closed, so we didn't get to see and do everything just because of maintenance or operational issues. But my 3 favorite things, I would definitely say Flying Aces, including that queue. That queue is stunning. I mean, Disney quality, if not even better. That's how good the queue is for Flying Aces, and what a fun surprise. I expected a secondary coaster, and it's great. I really enjoyed Flying Aces. Another great surprise, Benno's Great Race. What amazing theming. What a fun ride and a great concept where rather than just shooting, you're solving different puzzles. And that's part of the fun. It's like, what do I do with this wrench at this screen? Do I cut the spider webs? Am I hammering something? Am I grabbing things and moving it to a different part of the screen? That's part of the fun as far as figuring out those puzzles on top of the outstanding theming, animatronics, and practical and video effects. And third, of course, the big draw, probably the equivalent of like a Space Mountain, Formula Rossa. The speed is incredible, probably the most invigorating and thrilling ride in any theme park. People always talk about adrenaline in theme parks. This one lives up to that. Once you're done with it, you've got a rush Your hair is on end, you're panting, your eyes are the size of saucers. It is an experience like no other. And if you could handle that, I highly recommend putting the fear aside and riding Formula Rosa.
Absolutely. Add it to your list. I mean, it's a great stop if you're going to be going to Abu Dhabi. It's definitely not a half day park. You could pair that quite simply with the WB because they're across the road from each other and they're on the same complimentary shuttle run.
That's the thing. I would say that the two parks are not alike at all. WB is all about theming and environment and a lot of dark rides. Only two real roller coasters in WB. They're very nice coasters. They're smaller, but they're still good. And then Ferrari World is less on the theming and much more on the speed. So in that regard, they complement each other as far as different experiences really, really well. So it's a great pairing, I think.
Yeah, and the only other thing we didn't do while in Yaz Island is they have actually the Yaz Island Water Park, but we just ran out of time. But again, I think if you could pair Ferrari World and WB on the same day, that would give you an extra day to do Yaz Island Water Park. And they have a variety of park admission passes where you can get a 3-for-1, I believe.
And speaking of Yaz Island, there's a ton of construction happening in the area. So this is definitely an emerging tourist attraction area and something to keep an eye on because there's going to be more and more things to do in Yaz Island coming in the very near future. So keep that in the back of your mind when you're planning your trip to Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, for sure. And the nice thing is it pairs really great with Dubai, which is our next stop.
So check this out. Ferrari World is a lot of fun, particularly if you like speed or you like cars or there's somebody in your family who's into one or all of those things. A great park. Talked about the pluses, talked about the minuses, but either way, Abu Dhabi and Ferrari World can be part of your best trip ever.